Today we'll talk about chicory, a blue blossom that is loved by bees and homesick soldiers alike. This little gem might look sweet and dainty, but hides a great deal of magic beneath the surface, along with medicinal benefits. Can this so-called weed replace your daily coffee with health benefits to boost? Chicory, or Chicorium intybus, is a perennial plant that originated in Europe. And from there, the prolific foliage has extended its roots to northern Africa and some parts of Asia. Colonization then brought it all over the world, where it was quickly adapted to medicinal and culinary use. Its blue blossoms are a delightful surprise in spring and summer. The shade of blue on their petals changes in tone, depending on what the weather conditions are. And despite its bright and dainty top, it's got a very sturdy root beneath the surface. Wherever chicory was brought, the hardy little shrub adapted and took root, and it's now considered a weed by many. But we shouldn't count this flower as a weed because of its variety of health benefits. Today it's mostly used for animal fodder, but it was a common appearance around the dinner table back in the day. Recordings of its use in Egypt date back 5,000 years, and it's even mentioned in passing in the Bible. The Romans had a fondness for it, and it was mentioned by philosophers Apicius and Pliny the Elder, who both had a great reverence for its medicinal value, and Apicius was particularly partial to a salad made from the chicory leaf. And now for the juicy, or shall I say roasted bits. It's used as a substitute for coffee. Ever since the discovery of the coffee bean in the 1600s, it's been a valuable and much beloved drink that quickly made its rounds across the world. But it's always been on the pricey side, so it's easy to see why humans have experimented with every bark, root, and fungi they could get their hands on to try to produce a substitute for the expensive and sometimes rare bean. Without much success, but chicory remains one of the very few alternatives that gained public approval. In times of war, when supplies for coffee were scarce, Confederate and World War I soldiers relied on chicory to get a taste of home. But it was the Civil War that cemented chicory in the culture of New Orleans. To this day, you will find it to be a popular warm drink, and it's added to regular coffee brews almost automatically to enhance the boldness and richness of regular coffee. The introduction of roasted chicory instead of coffee mostly phased out its everyday use. Before that, the entire plant was used from root to flower, both as sustenance and as a medicinal aid. Chicory contains calcium, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, and vitamins C, A, and B6, and its substantial amounts of fiber are most likely the reason its use to treat digestive issues has gone on for centuries. In modern-day South Africa, its mild effects are predominantly used to treat constipation and diarrhea in babies and the elderly. It's thought that it reintroduces healthy gut bacteria into the intestines, a natural probiotic. Records of chicory's use for gut health stretch back for centuries and across continents. Probiotic chicory supplementation is probably the most widely used form of consumption outside of its use as a coffee replacement. In Bosnia, Croatia, India, and archaeological records from Egypt note chicory in many treatments for liver ailments. Jaundice, swelling, or malfunction of this vital organ were treated with the entire plant in the form of decoctions that were simmered down to a strong brew and drunk. It was often added alongside other medicinal plants, depending on the condition, to enhance the treatment of blood sugar levels and inflammation. And what might be the most notable of all, chicory is the hangover cure of choice in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Who needs coffee and an oily breakfast when you've got chicory? This tried and tested cure for those morning after jitters might explain why chicory is hailed as a champion of detoxification in general. If it can expel copious amounts of alcohol from the system, surely it will cleanse the rest of the body of unwanted toxins too. And finally, chicory is added to other curative plants as a treatment for malaria in Afghanistan. Chicory is edible in its entirety, but most often it is cultivated for its roots. They are consumed in very much the same way that other root vegetables, like carrots, would be. And their storage is similar too. They can store for months under cool, dry, and dark conditions, alongside your potatoes and beets. But we're all here to hear about how we can turn this nondescript vegetable into a drink that resembles coffee, aren't we? Simply put, once the roots are dried, sun-dried, or dehydrated, they can be ground and filtered through hot water, just like you would with regular coffee beans. This drying and grinding process can also be applied to making flour from the root, and is perfectly suited for making tortillas, wraps, and flatbread. If a source of sugar is added, it will rise the same way bread would, but you might find it a little less fluffy and aerated than its wheat counterpart. The leaf is described as having a slightly bitter and mildly sweet taste, a profile that lies somewhere between spinach and rocket. The French use it often in salads and sandwich toppings, and it's a popular addition to Italian pasta and pizza. And though the stems are totally edible, it's reserved for soups and stews when the stems are younger and more tender. Or you might find them to be a bit too woody and stringy. The flowers, as pretty as they are described as very bitter. Their use has been almost solely reserved for medicinal teas and poultices. The seeds, however, make for a lovely peppery garnish to almost any dish. And that brings us to its curative preparations. Every part of chicory is simmered down into a concentrated poultice. Its vitamin and mineral makeup is mostly concentrated in the roots and flowers, so those are the parts you'll find most value in. And while chicory stores well in any form, freezing it will reduce its curative kick. It's best used fresh or dried. Besides having a caffeine-free option for coffee and a pharmaceutical aid right outside your door, you might want to plant a few extra blooms in your flower beds, because the bees just love them. They prefer more aerated and loose soil and don't quite appreciate overly moist conditions. Planted in early spring, their roots start to develop around 30 days after sprouting. At this point, it's a good idea to regularly add some extra nutrition to the soil. Like most other root vegetables like onions and beets, the development of strong, healthy, and nutritious roots requires a lot of energy, so don't skimp out on keeping them well fed. Other than that, they just want some sun, water, and appreciation for their lovely daisy-like cobalt blooms. So, have you ever tried chicory coffee? Tell us in the comments whether you liked it as much as we did. Or maybe you always wondered why your grandmother swore by that shrub on her porch. What was it called? Let us know, and it might just be the topic of our next video. Don't forget to leave a like and share this with other like-minded nature lovers. See you next time. Stay green, stay curious, and embrace the power of nature's pharmacy. Disclaimer: chicory can cause allergic reactions in some people. Its high inulin content can also lead to bloating and gas in some individuals. I am not a medical doctor. If you are on chronic medication, pregnant, or suffering from any health condition, please consult a medical professional. I am here to relay my own thoughts and opinions. My videos are entirely based on my own research and experiences.